Hi guys and welcome to Eye on the Storm. Sorry for that brief delay. Real life is always getting in the way, but we really appreciate those of you who hung out and waited for the show to begin. We are here. We're excited. We have a great guest for you. We have so much to talk about this week. And let's get started. First, my co-host, Gillyweed. How you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Great. Who are you? Introduce yourself if people don't know you.
I am Gillyweed. I stream Heroes of the Storm every weekday, and now getting into casting a little bit. The dream I've always wanted to, casting the Heroes Hype Amateur Series. And then I am one of your hosts here on Eye on the Storm, and I am joined by you, Anna. What about you?
That's me. I'm just about the same as Gilly. Been around esports a long time. Started in StarCraft 2. Now doing lots in Heroes of the Storm. Also involved with Misscliks, where you are finding us right now. And in case you're wondering what the heck it is we're doing and where we are doing it, this is the Misscliks channel. It's a place where we like to uplift and provide support for for female role models in geek and gaming culture. So you're going to see lots of content revolving around geek and gaming pursuits that have female role models at the head, or at least heavily involved in those shows. You're going to see more of those things coming out soon. But thank you to Misscliks for hosting us here. We love them, so please give them lots of love. And then here, Eye on the Storm is a show, like Gilly said, that was initially started as a kind of study hall for her and I as we were trying to learn to cast. And it turned out that we just wanted to share that journey with you guys, and it's kind of evolved now into this community discussion show and a place to learn heroes strategy and what's going on in our community. And along those lines, we have a guest this week. Keeeferz is here. Keeeferz, who are you? What do you do?
Hey everyone. I am a competitive Heroes of the Storm player. I played on 2ARC Gaming for 6 months, placed second place in HPL, played in a few weeklies, monthlies, and I'm here to talk to you about starting a team, you guys, for anyone interested in Heroes of the Dorm.
Yeah, with Heroes of the Dorm, we're going to talk about that here pretty quick. It's a great time. A lot of people are starting up teams between that and the Heroes Hype Amateur Series as well. And plus, the game's getting more and more people every day, and hopefully soon going to be getting a ton of new people. So it's a great time to be talking about building a team. But first, we want to talk a little bit about a community discussion point that happened, and that is the Developer Insight blog. And do you want to do the Blizzard Stream Awards first, Anna? Shout outs?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I want to take a moment just to thank you guys very much, because if you didn't hear, JC and I, well, Eye on the Storm itself, was nominated for a Blizzard 2014 Stream Award, and for the, what was it called? Favorite Heroes Community Show. I'm scrolling down to find it because I like seeing our name here. There it is. And we won second place, which is super awesome. Really excited, and want to congratulate Town Hall Heroes, our friends there. They won first place. It's really awesome. But wanted to say a special thank you to you guys who voted for us and supported us and said congratulations. I'm going to get really emotional about it if I talk too much about it, but we put a lot of work into this show and a lot of passion. And so to be recognized that way was really unexpected and meant a ton to us. And we did win $1,000, which we are really excited to do something with to hopefully thank you. So that's the only teaser I'm going to give you, but please stay tuned because we owe that all to you.
Thank you guys so much. Just very unbelievable, just amazing, and you guys are awesome, and we're so proud. We're so proud of the show, and yes, definitely look forward to some awesome stuff coming soon.
Absolutely. Well, now we can get into the Developer Insight blog and we can actually talk about heroes, but just thank you a million times over for that, guys, and we'll keep trying to bring you the best content we possibly can to be deserving of that love. So let's move into the Developer Insight blog. Gilly, what is a Developer Insight blog? Why do we care about it?
Well, it looks like they're trying something new, which is kind of teasing some of the changes that will be coming up with the next patch, which I think most people are pretty sure is going to be next week, mainly because there was a tweet that said they're looking to release a new hero and a new map next week. So that's pretty cool. We're going to be looking at getting Tomb of the Spider Queen and Sylvanas. But then, of course, with every patch, there's generally going to be some changes to heroes and maybe maps as well. And so the Developer Insight blog just had some heroes that we can maybe be looking forward to or changes for.
I really love that Blizzard is doing this because they have definitely heard a lot from the community, all the shows, on the forums, everyone saying like, hey, we want more communication about the changes you're making and why you're making them. And so doing this preemptively is pretty cool because they have done these insights before, but they've done them after the fact. Did you get to read through this, Keeeferz? What did you think?
Yeah, I got to read all of it. I don't know if you want to go down hero by hero
Yeah,
Yeah.
or
let's chat about Abathur first because we know that it looks like they're looking at buffing him a little bit. What do you think?
um, pretty cool. The what is it called? Ultimate Evolution. It did feel a little underwhelming without the heroic. The lower cooldown was nice because previously it had a longer cooldown when it had the heroic. We'll still have to see like if he fits because there's still a lot of other things besides his ultimate that make him different from when he was a beast hero. So like for example, his stab damage, his locust health, his locust damage, all of those really have to be talented now. But symbiote is just a lot more better of an ability now. So we'll have to see if he can still perform in terms of like his lane pushing mechanic and keep up with his team fights like he did with this buff. So we'll definitely have to see and if he can still live up to what he used to be. I
Yeah.
wouldn't call anything pretty early.
Yeah, I think a big hit to him too was the change to what was the talent? Not Merc lore, promote.
Oh,
Believe.
promote, yeah,
Yeah,
that
so I think
that
that
was
was
really
another thing
huge.
that really hit him too. So we'll have to see if
Yeah.
some of these changes to the heroics can help bring Abathur back a little bit into the meta. They're also changing, it looks like making monstrosity a little bit stronger too.
Mm-hmm. The
I
permanent duration.
Yeah, I honestly have no idea which is the better heroic anymore. I mean, we just don't really see Abathur too much, so I don't know. What do you think of that, Keeeferz, for monstrosity? Is that something that's going to make it viable? Was it already viable?
Um, it was it was a bit of a toss up. Both of them were
Mm-hmm.
pretty low impact ults. Um, Now that it won't have a time duration, I think the only what they were trying to accomplish here was that they wanted to see how powerful it was without releasing something overwhelmingly powerful. So if they can
Mm-hmm.
kind of buff the numbers a little bit each time, and then find that sweet spot. Whereas if they started out with just something super strong and then try to tone it down, maybe that's not the direction they wanted to go in. Do I think it's powerful? I don't think I personally don't think it's like powerful as a team fight thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I like to symbiote my allies as opposed to a super minion.
Yeah.
But if he were to, be viable, you could definitely see me playing him. Oh, not no, I take that back. But you could definitely see us picking him. I main tank, so I wouldn't really
Right.
play Abathur. You don't really want Abathur there on the front lines with his
Mhm.
little jiggly hands.
Probably not so much.
Well, another really important change that we've kind of talked a ton about, Gilly, is
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard kind of came out and said, okay, we understand that 2 supports is standard right now and that nothing is really beating it very well. And so they said they're going to make some changes to healers. They didn't say too much that's very specific. But they did talk about like nerfing Uther and some of his really strong things. But I guess it's just good to hear that they see that. On one hand, I'm kind of like, oh, bummer, because I really like dual support play. It's fun to watch. But I think they're right that they want to have that be something that is possible to use, but not necessary to use. You know, they want a little more variety. What did you guys think?
It looks like, so one thing they said kind of key was that they know that the dual support composition is there, but they want to make sure that it has downsides. So, and that they're looking toward having heroes that could counter it. So it looks like they're really trying to sort of make sure that everything has a counter, which is really cool. And then underneath, when they're talking about the nerf to Uther, they just said that it seems like with the ability to continue using all of your abilities in ghost form, and at that point you're not even you don't even have to worry about your own health really. That's hard for them to counter. That is what I think they're probably trying to allude to. So he's still going to have eternal devotion, but it sounds like he's just going to be mainly healing is what I got, and not really doing CCs anymore.
As a competitive player, Keeeferz, are you happy to see them addressing the fact that two supports is kind of the mainstay right now?
Um, I'm glad that this is something that Blizzard used to not do, which was openly admit to some sort of like design that had not been intended, but they see like, oh, well, maybe we can scale this back a bit.
Mhm.
Normally, like for example, I followed a lot of StarCraft too, and normally they'd hold back on, they'd be very reserved about making any changes. But because this is like their first game where they allow people to test open alpha and then or closed alpha, closed beta, and so many people at that. I'm really glad that they came out and said it. On that note, in terms of like the competitive side, um, yeah, it'll definitely knock Uther down in terms of power. Will he be as strong? I don't know. I mean, I think he'd still be a great choice because his
Yeah.
kit alone is really powerful. If you nerf his like ghost form, it depends how bad that is. Like if it's just like miserable, then maybe, but I don't think it'll be like as big of as a nerf because it really only impacts Uther when he's in death.
Right.
So like just don't die and you'll still have a really great hero.
My whole thought is that we're trying to move toward having a game where positioning is very important, and so they're trying to move away from some of those heroes where the positioning is more forgivable. Uther's pretty tanky, and his heals are really good, and so
Yeah,
if on top of that you're like, I died, but oh well, it's fine, YOLO, here
yeah.
comes my divine storm. That's kind of lame. So I
Yeah.
like that they're gonna punish it a little bit more. If you're just way out of position and you die, then you can't drop your stuns. That seems okay to me.
Hmm. Well, I mean, healers is kind of a general term. They did address that they're just going to focus on that one character right now. But another one character that they've been promising to focus on and that they reminded us that they're promising to focus on is Murky. I like that they put quality of life changes for the little guy. That's cute. And it's interesting, I was kind of surprised when I read what they wrote. They're like, yeah, we're going to buff him. Don't worry. We're going to make him stronger. But we're going to do it really cautiously because we don't want to make him too strong. And in my mind, I was like, how are you going to make Murky too strong? But I suppose that it would be easier than you think with his respawn ability. What did you guys think? I mean, there's not a whole lot there, so we don't have to discuss it too much. But are you guys excited to see Murky? And what do you expect that they're going to do to make him a little stronger?
I'm handing that one to you, Keeeferz. I have no idea.
Okay, I knew you guys would ask this question, so I thought about it to myself, like before I was even on the show. And like at first I said to myself, well, do I really care about Murky? Like he seems really like gimmicky. I really like, even if he were balanced, would I still pick him in competitive play? Because like what role does he fill on the team?
Mm.
In terms of like damage and where he lies in a team fight, whether it's front, mid, or back. And like I don't know. I really brushed him away, but I mean, he is a really fun hero. So
Hmm.
I mean, if they make those quality of life changes, you could see, people wouldn't get as angry for people picking Murky. That's for sure. Um, Being competitive, don't think you'll make it though.
I can only think that I think what you're saying, Gilly, about this game really trending toward positioning being so important is very true. So when I think about what can Murky do to help with positioning, knowing that like March for Murky is really good, like that is something that can really help in a team fight. So if we go along that trend, Murky's point is to die and be able to die, right? So maybe if you can make Murky some sort of meat shield and like maybe not give him actual shielding because that would kind of go toward that more imbalanced thing. But if maybe when he dies or if he puts himself in front of somebody, he can be kind of a shield that way. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of that could make him more useful in competitive play. But other than that, you're right, Keeeferz. I'm stumped.
I mean, his slime and pufferfish were pretty. So I just did my grind to 5 with them this week,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some talents that can really beef up the slime and pufferfish in a
Mm-hmm.
way that's really contributing to the slow of the enemy heroes. But then also my siege damage, I was grind to 5ing him. I didn't know what I was doing, and my siege damage was insane.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're really looking toward maybe another push push hero, like with Abathur's monstrosity or something, if they're still trying to make something like that work, where you just have somebody who's just trying to pretty much consistently push, and then everyone else has to really be careful and not take team fights and stuff, then maybe that's what they're going for. I don't know.
Well, I'm really excited to see what they do with them, because I would like there to be heroes in the game that are kind of undefinable and that you don't know exactly where they fit, and you can kind of be creative with them. So far, Murky hasn't quite done that, but we'll see. Another hero that has done that people have been picking a ton, and was almost the brainless first pick in Hero League for a while, has been Stitches. And they have talked about some plans to reduce his tankiness, because they realize that his hook is really the characteristic that makes him so good, and that having him also be tanky is kind of what makes him a little bit powerful. I was sad to see that, because I've just started playing a ton of Stitches, but I think it makes sense. What do you guys think?
You want to open this? Okay, all right. So I did a lot of thinking about this one. Stitches, okay, so in terms of tanks right now in competitive, there are I would say four tanks that are very prevalent. Diablo, ETC, Stitches, and Chen. Of all of those, Stitches is the most powerful at peeling for his entire team, and that's a role that Arthas used to have. And then if you compare Arthas's ultimate to, which is the Legion of North, or the ghouls that he summons. If you compare Arthas's ultimate to Stitch's Devour, Arthas's ultimate heals for almost his full life bar. I want to say like 90% of his health, 80% of his health. And Stitch's Devour, when talented at level 1 and 4 with Chew Your Food and Amplified Healing, it heals for about a third of his health. Like, I'm sure, Anna, when you use Devour, your health like shoots up after you use Devour. And so like, the difference between Legion of Northrend and Devour is that Legion of Northrend, or I keep calling it Legion, it's Army of the Dead.
Army of the Dead,
yeah, Army of the Dead heals your health over time, and it's about 80% of your health, whereas Stitches gets a 30% heal, but it's instant. And the fact that it's instant means that, in terms of burst potential, he's harder to take down. So if you want a tank that can peel for your whole team, which is what Arthas doesn't exactly bring, because he has a kit that can peel, but it doesn't peel for the whole team. So in terms of like their design philosophy and each hero having a really unique feel, I think that might bring Arthas back onto back into drafts. And if that's true, then this is just me predicting things.
Yeah.
If that's true, that means that a new Brock will then see a lot more play, because really, like, Stitches is the most tanky hero of, debatably the most tanky hero between Chen, Diablo, ETC, Stitches. So, like, if you look at less used tanks, such as Tyrael and Arthas, they're less tanky. So if he's toned down to their level, then that means that Arthas becomes viable, because he's a little more tanky than Stitches. And then when Arthas becomes viable, he summons his Army of the Dead. So then you can use Locust Swarm, and it's really interesting how like the introduction of one hero can, all of a sudden even the playing field for a lot of other warriors.
Yeah,
I would be very happy about that, because I miss a lot of the warriors. Tyrael is my favorite, and then I miss a noob as well. So I think that'd be really cool. I did want to make a note too that they talked about in the insights, just really fast, that they like that with the change to Gorge that they put in the last patch, that they are starting to see a more Putrid Bile, and I like Putrid Bile. I think it's super fun. So
that's what I was referring to, peeling for your whole team.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, I really like Putrid Bile, and I saw they're also looking to make some changes to Diablo as well. So ultimately the goal, right, is to have no hero be viable more than another, to have all heroes be viable depending on what you want to do. So I'm glad they're doing those things. I really hope we're going to be seeing more warriors available, because like you're saying, it's kind of like you get Stitches, and if you don't, you get ETC and Diablo, and if you like, there isn't too much variety outside of that right now, at least in the matches that we've been watching. So I'm excited to see that. The next and last thing that they talked about in the developer blog specifically was the Lost Vikings. And I thought it was interesting. They kind of said, like, cautiously, hey, we think this is going pretty good, we're not gonna do too much differently. But we did nerf the boat. We know the boat was strong. You know, we're planning on nerfing the boat.
Sorry about the boat.
Yeah. But other than that,
Got
it's
excited
pretty
about the
good.
singing.
Yeah. I actually wrote to one of my coworkers, Machine, who used to be a StarCraft player who plays a lot of Lost Vikings. And I was like, bad news, Bryce. Nerf on the boat's coming. He's like, I knew it. I knew it was too good to be true. So, I mean, I kind of agree that Vikings haven't yet explored all of the way they're going to be used, and that they should just keep watching them aside from the boat. So I was happy to see that. What about you, Keeeferz?
Shout out to Bella Morte, my teammate. Because we would draw. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we would draw Lost Vikings bands in the Heroes Hype Amateur League.
Yeah, you guys were.
Yeah, and that's solely because of Bella Morte.
Okay.
And the longboat is really powerful. I would agree there. So, decent change. Will I be happy to see it? Of course not. We'll miss how powerful the boat is. But I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. So yeah.
I didn't realize that the bans solely were because they knew that you guys had a really good Lost Vikings player. That'll be cool to remember for next time we're able to cast you guys in there.
Yeah. I think a lot of the Vikings bans seem to be targeted at players.
Toward people,
Yeah,
because
like
they are
horse
such
pants.
they are such a specialized.
That guy.
And who was it? Sedekis? Was that the person that we were casting
It was
last night?
Seftuku.
Seftuku, yes.
Yeah.
That was some pretty
him really
amazing
well,
Lost
too.
Vikings play.
He had the master skin, so obviously it's put his time in.
Well, we have tons to talk about today in terms of building a team, but kind of the last thing I wanted to touch on, like you said, JC, was that outside of the blog, Blizz Heroes Twitter actually said that they're aiming to release Tomb of the Spider Queen and Sylvanas next week, which was kind of a surprise because, again, that's more transparency than they usually give us. They've been very like, oh, no one may know the day or the hour. And now they're saying like, hey, next week we're planning to release these, which is cool. It's hype. What do you guys think?
Oh yeah. I mean, look at this. I'm ready. I've got her ready. I've been waiting for Sylvanas for a long time.
I have to say it's a strange feeling because I completed my grind to 5 this week. Woo, finally finished my grind to 5, but it's gonna all of a sudden be uncompleted because there's a new hero. But that's also exciting because I get to play her to 5 now. But yeah, Tomb of the Spider Queen. I'm stoked to have a new map to play on. As a competitive player, Keeeferz, when a new map comes out, are you guys just hungry to kind of like play on it for days and days to learn everything about it, or what do you do?
I mean, yeah, we want to play it. For me, the direction that I would take my team in, though, is that we need to be prepared to play all maps. So, but really, like, the studying of maps should be on your shot caller, because they call the rotations of all your players. So, I mean, of course, my guys are going to want to play that map, but we'll have to stay, on top of the other maps as well.
Okay, well, I'm excited. It's going to be that the same art style as Sky Temple, so we know that's going to look really cool. Sylvanas has been crazy hyped up, so I don't know. We've talked about that in previous episodes. I won't harp on it, but really exciting stuff. With that, kind of segueing from community into our discussion of strategy and things, unless you guys want to chat any more about the developer blog. Is there anything else I missed?
No, I think we're good.
Okay, so segueing, we do have Heroes of the Dorm going on very, very soon. Signups are happening right now. If somehow you missed this, Heroes of the Dorm is a tournament series that is all collegiate, and what you can do is sign up with players from your school, and there are amazing prizes on the line. Your college tuition, setups, PC setups, things like that. And there's also a fantasy bracket for people who may not be in college like me, but still want to participate. And there's prizes for that. There's going to be ESPN involvement. It's a kind of a big deal for a beta tournament. There's lots of money involved. So what we kind of wanted to do today in our strategy section, because we know a lot of you may be trying to put together a team for this, is to talk to Keeeferz as somebody who has been involved in putting together a team about what it takes to kind of recruit and audition and practice and do all these things with a new team. So just in case before we leave Heroes of the Dorm, I wanted to show you guys where you can check this out. This is heroesofthedorm.com, so you can learn all about it. And then there's signups here from TESPA. If you go to compete.tespa.org, and in fact, I'll put that in the chat for you guys. So in case you want to sign up, you can go ahead and you can look at it while we're chatting.
I got it.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's talk about team building, because this is something that I have never done, but I would assume that one of the first things that you would need to do is just like start recruiting. A lot of people come to us and they're like, where can I find people to play with? So where do you start for that, Keeeferz?
There's a free agent chat on Skype for looking for other players. You can recruit people that you kind of find in game if you think they're good. Maybe you have a friend, you invite them to the game, and you want to teach them it, and then it turns out you think like if you believe that someone can pick up the game and you can teach them enough, because this game doesn't have like you can bring a friend in, and there are skills that'll translate from League of Legends or Dota.
Right.
So yeah, just using the free agent chat on Skype. If you're interested in that, I believe the information is in in the subreddit r/competitive hots, and that's where you can find it.
Cool.
Okay.
I made a posting there when I was building a team. Kind of worked, but over time you what you do is you really need to accumulate like a friends list, and of that friends list you have people who play the game relatively well, and as you queue more and more of them, then you begin to find out, okay, do I like these players' tendencies? Do I think I can learn something from them? So that's how I would go about recruiting, which is what I did.
So that kind of leads into the next thing that we were going to ask you, which is what you're looking for in new players. You mentioned finding people you can kind of learn from. What other types of things are you looking for generally?
Their role, like if they play warrior, support, assassin, the depth of their hero pool, because drafting is super important. And if you're confined to a very small box of heroes, because your ADs or your assassins, they don't have a large variety, and that really pigeonholes you into some really awkward drafts. So like if you want to be, and I know for a lot of like Heroes of the Dorm players, you may not be able to have like that in-depth hero pool if you're just picking up someone.
Right.
But there are ways to play around that. Just make sure that going into it you have a game plan. Go back to the question, what else do you look for? You have to make sure that if you're the captain, which like for example I am, you need to make sure that you set up the rules within the team. That's really important. So like you need to find people who are willing to listen and cooperate, so that when you define those rules, you're able to keep them in check. You don't have to be what's the word I'm looking for? Like all bossy. You don't have to be like super bossy. Yeah, bossy. You don't have to be like extreme like boss and like tell it, hey, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. But like you need to be like if an argument comes up in game, like know that argument should be picked up after game. You need players who can talk with each other, because communication goes both ways. So as much as you need to keep your players in line, you also need to listen to them, so that you can work with them, because their success is your success.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. A lot of people kind of assume that the only important thing when you're recruiting a player for a team is their in-game skill, but there are so many other things that are important depending on the context of what you're doing. First of all, like you said, communication in-game, but if you're trying to also promote your team or do other things, professional skill in front of the camera, marketability, there's a lot of elements that make up a good competitive esports player. And so I think a lot of people maybe don't think about those things, but it's definitely worth considering.
You talked about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and one last thing is if you like there's a lot of teams right now who don't like stick together after maybe 2-4 weeks, and it's really important that like you're able to talk through your issues and not let it get in the way of the cohesiveness of your team. If people disagree on things, just remember that like everything can be talked out. You're all college students, you have you're all young adults, so you can talk out any problems you have Because the last thing you want is that you're playing in the Heroes of the you're preparing for the Heroes of the Dorm tournament. You have your roster set up, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like your roster kind of falls apart, and you don't want to play with each other. I mean, that well, you wouldn't want that to happen. But going into the tournament, like you need to be able to keep a level head, not too high, not too low.
For those people who are maybe looking to set up a team and kind of take charge in that, I think it'd be really beneficial for them to know maybe what types of things, disagreements they might see as they start to get teammates. So do you have maybe some examples of things that people might disagree about within a team?
Um, you definitely need to set a premise as to like what your team's play style will be and how you want to approach the game, because it is a game, so there are strategical elements to it, and some players like to do very gank centric compositions. Some teams like to do very push centric compositions. Some teams really love their double support. Some teams really love their stitches compositions, and a lot of people have different opinions as to how the game should be played. There's not one end all be all, but as long as everyone's on the same page, um, then you can work out those problems. In terms of addressing like disagreements on the team, like I said, you just need to be able to say, this is my perspective on the game, and that's yours. Where can we meet on this? So that we can both agree to a play style that, will work for us as a team.
Yeah, that's really important.
That's awesome. That's something that I would never consider, but that makes a lot of sense.
Like when I started my team, I made sure I was like, hey, you guys, I introduced myself as a player. Like, so this is very applicable for any players who have been playing Heroes for a while, and then you want to start a team, but you only know a few people on campus who have access to the game, and you have these months of experience, and they maybe only have 2 weeks of experience. So like you need to be willing to teach them, and then as much as you teach them, they need to be willing to listen. So yeah, being a good listener, being a teacher, and being able to set the premise as to how the game will be played.
You mentioned that, kind of making sure to work things out and wait till things are worked out is important. And I would think, and I've never put together a competitive team, but I've worked for a competitive team for a long time. And it seems to me that especially in Heroes of the Storm, where things are really volatile, there's a lot of changes happening, that a good idea would be to be very patient and slow to make big changes. In terms of like, I think I see a lot of teams that play and they're doing really, really well, and all of a sudden they have a bad tournament, and then it's like, ugh, we're not good together. We have bad synergy. Let's quit. And then they change around their roster and things. Would you say that you've seen that happen? And if so, how long do you say to wait until something fixes itself before it's actually broken?
Yeah. So a lot of what I've been talking up to now is like disagreements and arguments, or things that bumps in the road or obstacles that you may encounter as a team. Some really high points as a team in terms of avoiding that. Well, firstly, yes, I have seen that in the competitive scene. And it's kind of a bummer because you have these really talented players who disband over certain disagreements, etc. But certain high points that you can hit where you're in the right direction is team discussions, replay analysis, watching other tournaments together, and not as a whole team maybe, but like even if it's just like 2 or 3 of you, that's really fruitful because you can just get the ball rolling and have a lot of discussion, bounce some ideas off, and you can try and replicate that play. So in terms of like that was your question, right? And what have I seen? Yeah.
Yeah, and just kind of like another thing would be, at what point do you say, okay, it really isn't working and we need to change our roster? Because, it's good to be patient and try to work those things out, but there is going to be a time where maybe you find out that your team is not working well together.
So patience, a lot of patience. If you find out and you see tendencies in a player where they're not quite what you want or what you think should be executed. Like, okay, everyone knows this. Vala doesn't stand in the front line, right? So if your Vala player, right, is within melee range of your own ETC, right? So I'm playing ETC, and Gilly's playing Vala, right? So if if Gilly is way too close to the tank, I have to address with her, hey, you need to back up behind the tank, but still be within range to capitalize on whoever we're focusing down.
Mhm.
Okay, I tell Gilly that. A week goes by, I still have to remind Gilly the same thing, and then 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks go by. So as long as you see improvement and you can address those mistakes or issues you have with other players, then it doesn't become an issue. But when you kind of let them fester and they kind of go unchecked, that's when you can kind of have some player tensions. Because like you need to talk with your players as the captain, right? You need to talk with your players about how they can improve, and also realize you can improve too when you're watching over replays. And if someone might say like, oh well, I can't position in such way because you're playing in such way. And like, okay, so let's look at a replay, and everything. The replay part is the most important part because until you look at the replay, you cannot just nebulously talk about issues that you have in team fights. So if you can, and not just one replay, because everyone can have a bad game. But if it's continuous and you see this, if you see that same mistake repeated Monday, Wednesday, next Monday, Tuesday, if it's a continuous problem, that's when you have to start addressing it. And don't be afraid to, because I said it earlier in this show. Your teammate's success is your success. So if you're not willing to help them succeed, then how will you? So patience and making sure that you're not afraid to confront any issues.
I know I'm jumping around a lot because changes is like way beyond the recruiting process, and we had just barely started talking about about auditioning and things. So I guess jumping back a little bit, when you've recruited a player and you're kind of testing them out with your team and you're looking for whether or not they're going to be the right fit for your team. So this is, I was just talking about when you've had someone on your team and you realize you need to make changes, but
you need to kick them off already.
Yeah, you need to kick them off. But how do you know when you want them on? I mean, we've talked about like the good communication skills and all that kind of stuff. But I guess in a roundabout way, what I'm trying to ask is, we've been talking a lot from the perspective of kind of the recruiter, the captain, the person who's putting together the team. If I'm a player who's looking to be recruited to a team, whether that's a team for Heroes of the Dorm or just a team for fun, or whether that's a pro team, what are some suggestions for a person that might be auditioning that you would look for?
Okay, so I'm the captain, and I'm going to approach Bob, Mike, and Frank, right? And then I noticed that Bob's really good, Mike's okay, Frank's okay, but I can't entirely be picky because remember, you're not gonna recruit like the next Arthalon, the next Glarum, the next Idra, whatever. You can't go into the recruiting expecting that you'll get the cream of the crop players, right? So we're gonna go back to patience again, and you need to realize that. You may think that that player is bad, but that's because they haven't had time to grow as a player, and they need that team environment to grow. Now, if the personality of the player is such that if they're really rigid and take criticism very poorly, aren't opening to talk, then you kind of know that that's not a player that you'd want to work with, right? So if I have a really good player but isn't willing to talk with the rest of the team, and says and gets really mad at his teammates, then that's when I know that's not a player I want. But if I have a player who is like, okay, he's pretty good, and you can work really well with them, then that's when you know that you found a player who you can grow, and you can continue to work with as you grow not only his skill but your own skill, because you may learn things along the way about how certain heroes should be played.
I know I'm talking a lot, so Gilly, you can ask the next question, but I'm just really intrigued by this whole process. The one more thing I wanted to ask about that is, when you do bring someone in and you're auditioning them, are you auditioning many people at a time? Like, will you plan to scrim with whatever members of your team are already permanent members? Monday we're scrimming with Bob, Tuesday we're scrimming with Frank, and we do that for a couple weeks, or how do you test them out?
Yeah, so I can talk about a few recruitment processes that I've been with because I've been with various teams.
Yeah.
So first I was on this team called Justice, and I just duo queued, trio queued with these group of guys, and then eventually they said, hey, you want to spot on this team? I said, yeah, I'll take it. Eventually I didn't like I didn't like the direction the team went in, so I left. I tried out for 2ARC, and the way 2ARC did it was they would they mass recruited people, and then like a pool of players would play with each other, and and you'd find out, and then you give feedback on each other. But that's when you have some upper management with other players.
Mm.
So from the grassroots level, I'm a college student looking to start a team. I'm gonna want to duo queue, trio queue, and find some players who I can get along with and fulfill the roles that I need on the team.
Hmm.
Um, and then from there, if you like that, if you like those players and how they perform and whatever I said, then then you can begin to grow the team from 2 to 3 people
Mm.
to 4 to 5 people. And it's very important that you start out with a small amount of players, because if you're a solo captain recruiting 4 people at a time,
Mm.
how are you going to track the progress of all those players? You can't.
Mm-hmm.
You simply can't. I've done that before where I got like I had this huge I made a Google form and I said, hey, like put all your accomplishments in esports, put your previous gaming background, put what roles you like to play, put in your hero pools, and I had this, and then I came out with this Excel spreadsheet that had everyone's information. And then, like Monday, I tried out these guys. Tuesday, and then it became a really long process because I was playing with 4 different players each day, or vari some variety of those 4 players. And it was really hard to keep track of it. So when you can start out, the easiest way is just start out with a few players at a time, 2 players at a time, 2 players at a time. And then all of a sudden you find one of those 2 players you like. All right, now it's just the 2 of you, 3 players at a time. It's you, Frank, and then Bob. And then Bob doesn't work out, so you go to Mike. And then, oh, I like Mike. All right, so now we're starting to see things evolve. And as the roster evolves and grows, that's when you can really you're in the right direction. Because if you pick all 4 right off the bat, you won't know if they will have the right synergy with each other. So you need to slowly grow your roster, I think,
Okay.
because no roster's grown overnight.
That does make a ton of sense. So we've got our roster now, and what do you do to start training with them? Do you start with just quick match? Do you go straight into Hero League? Do you try to start setting up scrims right away? What do you suggest for training?
Just quick match versus or hero league, anything
Mm-hmm.
that'll get you guys to play the or your team to play the game. Um, if you have that, whatever people call it, ladder anxiety, but I think people shouldn't have that. If you have ladder anxiety, that's fine. Just go quick match.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you guys are playing, um, that's all you need. Uh, of course, the most optimal would be Hero League or scrims, but you can't start off with scrims because you need to establish some sort of order within the team before you
Mm-hmm.
go into scrims, because chances are if you scrim, you're scrimming another team who hopefully has had those rules set in place. Like, for example, if I'm the shot caller and I haven't set certain rules and boundaries in place as to what rotations we make, and I'm going straight into a scrim and I'm encountering all these different things I've never seen before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to be able to practice with no pressure, and sometimes scrims have that pressure, so maybe it may not be the right direction for you.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Anna, do we talk about competing?
Um, I guess the Heroes, yeah. So Heroes Type Amateur Tour. There's an ESL Community Cup on Fridays. There's Go For on Sundays. Those are all amateur events which anyone can enter. Really low entry or really low skill, well, not really low skill level, but you're not competing with evil geniuses, So I would recommend those tournaments to start out with. And then from there, just begin to make connections with other captains from those teams, because that way you can get the scrims you need. There's sort of it happens in stages where you play Hero League, and you go into tournaments, and you're like, okay, you meet this team that you think's pretty good, and they think you're pretty good, so you can scrim them. So That's typically how practicing goes.
Yeah, it seems like joining one of those. I didn't think about this before, but going and doing the Heroes Hype would find you teams that you could then scrim with and practice
Hmm.
versus and get better. So that's really cool, kind of going, building off of each other. I like that.
Yeah. And Heroes Hype Amateur Series, I mean, Gilly and I obviously have a vested interest in that. All three of us have a vested interest in it, but we do recommend it. It's a great place to get tournament experience in kind of a safe, fun environment. We've been doing that, getting our casting experience in a safe, fun environment. So can't shout out Miss Honey and the Heroes Hype crew enough. So want to give them some love. But that said, so I guess we've gone through, recruiting, we've gone through auditioning, talked about synergy and training and competing. The one other thing that I wanted to chat about a little bit is that if you get to the point where you're trying to get your team noticed and you're trying to get them to maybe the level that you could be picked up by a sponsor or a pro team or something, can you talk to us a little bit about how to build notoriety or a very specific brand for your team? Is that something that you've had any experience doing, or have you picked up any tips along the way?
Um, let's see. So, I mean, I've seen like a few interview videos uh from like I don't know. You could watch Idra. You could watch
Hmm.
what's his name, Double Lift. Any sort of big personality. Uh, People will push the envelope and they'll say really edgy things like they'll call out players. Or you'll have really manner players like Sheth, for example. Um, all of those are really important. Have I had any experience with like branding or sponsors? Not exactly. I'm pretty new to the competitive scene. Um, but if you are looking to go that route, I would definitely try to look at the success of others and take the same steps they did because chances are what they did is the right thing. So,
I
I mean,
totally agree.
yeah.
Gilly, do you have anything to say about branding? Because, both of us have kind of worked in video production and PR type things, community type things. And I guess that you and I would kind of have some insight to offer in terms of what teams should start looking to do if they want to improve that for themselves. So, do you have anything to add there?
I think there's definitely always room to do things on social media, and also streaming would be good. Then doing some crazy things when you're doing tournaments are always a good way to kind of make a name for yourself for sure. Although, don't make yourself lose, but if you're able to kind of pull out some cool builds, like we were talking about Seth Thuko,
Mm-hmm.
and we just learned his name last night just solely because of the cool Lost Vikings play.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of thing for sure. And just, yeah, continuing to play well, getting to a point where you're sort of getting into higher levels of play will help too. I think that Heroes is so new of a community that there's definitely room for everyone to make a name for themselves when it comes to building teams and that type of thing. So, social media though for sure is going to be good. Going on shows like this, yay Keeeferz, good job.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I would add to. I mean, I've been working with Evil Geniuses since 2009, I guess. And their affiliate teams now through Good Game Agency. And one thing that I consistently hear from people who are management or sponsors of teams is that there's really kind of a mix of three things that they're looking for in pro players, which is, of course, skill. You want them to be really talented and be able to play the game well. Winning is really important. But also they're looking for, is this person very marketable? Meaning, are they good on camera? Do they have a really cool personality? Are the things about them that are interesting? Do they present themselves really well, even physically? Those kinds of things. And then third, do they have an existing following or potential to have an existing following that's really, really strong? Because just the fact that if you hire X pro player brings along 100,000 people who are interested in what he's doing, then that's really important. So I guess to translate that into what should you do as a team that's just kind of building up, I would say, really focus on building relationships with fans, things where you're making sure to take care of your community and provide a feeling of synergy with your community, or symbiosis, I guess I would say. Obviously practice your game so you have that skill. And then I think something that really lacks with pro players a lot of times that they don't put enough work into or feel like it's not something that you can study or work on is media ability. learning the ability to frame your thoughts and to speak publicly and how to use a camera and lights and all of those kinds of things. It's pretty accessible if you look out on YouTube, just kind of some tutorials on how to be on camera, how to frame your thoughts, how to do impromptu speaking. I think that was a really important one for some of our players. Just learning how to do an introductory sentence, a middle core sentence, and a conclusion sentence is a really valuable thing. So I know I can talk about that forever, as it's been my job for quite a while, but I would really encourage players to take that seriously after they get to the point where they're actually playing at a level of skill that they're considering making this either a profession or at least a very serious hobby.
Oh, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, thanks. I love talking about that stuff.
And
I get really excited.
Grab the soapbox. Take that
yeah,
away.
put away the soapbox. All right, so that said, we've talked a lot about team building. Is there anything that we haven't asked you, Keeeferz, that you think is really important that people should know about putting together a team?
What should people know?
I mean, we ask really good questions, so maybe there
Yeah,
isn't
no,
anything
I think
left.
you guys pretty much touched on all of it, yeah.
Yes, well, if you do think of anything during our play session, feel free to say things as well. Guys, if you have any questions too for Keeeferz or Anna or myself, you can always tweet us with the hashtag #StormShow. We're trying to watch chat as well, but we may miss it while we're in the play session. And I think we're ready for that play session, right, Anna?
Yes, we are. And we are going to see some ETC play coming out of Keeeferz. I'll show you guys really, really quickly here the build that he has made on our beloved Heroes Fire Talent Calculator. Here's the ETC build. We will go through that during the actual game little by little. You guys can ask questions on Twitter, and I will put the link to this in chat so you can watch and follow along with the game. And other than that, just be advised, as usual, the stream will go down very, very briefly while we set up our cameras and our in-game overlay, and then we'll be right back with that play session, so don't go anywhere.
See you guys soon.
See ya.